E chord. And we're talking about E with an added 9 to stretch the sound out a little bit. Today we're talking all about the E chord, but I've got to warm up my fingers a little bit. But this time I'm kind of focusing on the E major scale as it crosses the fretboard. Yeah. Oh yeah, you've heard this before, right? Okay, so we've got a lot to talk about today. But first, I think we should continue to warm up a little bit. So we'll start with just becoming familiar with the chord shape, which is on open low E string. We've got 3 fantastic open strings to employ with this chord shape. Finger 2 on fret 2 on the A, finger 3 on fret 2 on the D, and finger 1 on fret 1 on the G, and then everything else is open. What we'll do is we'll remove the fingers, shake the hand out a little bit, and reapproach the chord, placing each finger on the desired fret at the same moment. And that's how we start learning this, memorizing this as a grip. And we have to use the thumb. We have to use the thumb. If the thumb's way up here, we're likely to get workplace injury over the coming years, if we continue playing the guitar. So it's a really important idea to remember the guitar, the thumb sort of tracks over the back of the guitar neck, right on the sort of the nape, the round part, the round back of the guitar neck, in order to create a good reach for our left hand. So the E chord's home to a lot of really interesting techniques. You could just hear I made a mistake for on my fingering, and I opened up the D7, or the D note in the E7 chord, which is basically the E chord, but we remove the 3rd finger to create a dominant sound. And it's a really useful sound to remember, E7. But E is where we're at. And we'll keep practicing that grip while we use a strum pattern. And we're kind of speeding through the warm-up section here, so it's really important to remember the breath, focus on breath. You've heard this before, where we remove each finger and play the open strings and then re-fret each finger at the same time. And you've heard this in the song before. I know you have. I know you have. Really wildly famous song. So we'll continue along with our warm-up pattern here, okay? And we're using the finger 1 now because finger 1 is going to give us a nice sort of blues sound. And this is where, American music was one of our greatest exports. I guess 2 great exports are blues and jazz. And this is that sound that we all love hearing on the guitar because it gives us a blur between that major chord, which we're playing now, and that minor chord, which creates a completely different sonority. And we can add that D, that flatted seventh if we want. Do almost anything here, as long as we know the E major scale. And we'll start with the E major scale with, just ascending the low E string. And we end up on fret 12, 12, 11, 9. So let's use fret numbers 11, 9, 7, 5, 4, 2, and then open. We can also, because we have 2 E strings on the guitar, we could do the same frets on both strings and have a 2-octave leap between each note. And then that's basically the E major scale. The notes are E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, and E. Right? And we have that same scale that we can, instead of horizontally playing it over the guitar neck, we can span the space of the position of the first fret or open position. So 0. Let's go ahead and play the E major scale here. Ready? First, we'll go ahead and play the scale, this chord, and we'll call it E major, and we'll just listen to it for a few beats. And then we'll play through the scale, ascending on open 2-4, open 2-4 again, 1, 2, and we'll stop here on the E note, and we'll start again on the E note and continue our ascent. Open 2, 4, open 2, 4, 2, open, and then we descend the pattern. We'll stop there, start again. And as we descend, we're really thinking about playing this chord again. We've got to get from E, away from E and back to E again. Could also play the E minor blues, the pentatonic scale right here in open position, which is a minor scale starting on open 2, open 2, open 2, open 3, and then open 3 again. But this time we're starting and stopping on the E note. So the E note is the center of the scale. So everywhere we hit an E note or attack an E note, we can blur the lines if we like between the major pentatonic or the major scale and the minor pentatonic scale. This is a perfect 60 notes or 60 beats per minute to get this sort of little groove going. And we're just going to continue to refer to the low open E string. And you can play along. I hope you're playing along with all of these guitar lessons or guitar sessions, because even if we're not playing exactly the same things, we're still learning from one another. So I would recommend working on playing, getting into a situation where we're tuned up together and then we can play together. So the magic happens where, an old friend of mine, his name was Tom. The magic happens between the flatted third and the minor pentatonic scale, which is fret 3, the G note, right? This is the flatted 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. All right, the 3 or the do, re, mi, or the 1, 2, 3 is a G sharp in E major scale. But in the pentatonic scale, it's a flatted 3. And we're blurring the lines in American music between the flatted 3 and the major 3. So I'm just going to start. I'm not even going to get that sort of difficult at the beginning. All I'm doing is just kind of keeping an eye out for, or being observant that there is a low open E note sort of droning in the bass, even if I'm not playing it on every quarter note. And because I'm playing by myself, well, you're playing along with me, but we can basically play what we want when we want, as long as we have that tempo sort of maintained. And that's one of my favorite licks right there, is that descend. It's a blur between the major scale. We've got the descending, the minor pentatonic scale, and then we kind of introduce that octave there at the end. Let's take it one step further. I don't want to push anyone, but I think you're ready. So we'll take a look at the blues scale, which is introducing the flatted 5th into the minor pentatonic scale. Sorry, the E minor pentatonic scale. And don't forget to feel the gravity every time we hit an E note when we're practicing a new scale or any scale at all. Leonard Skinner's got this figured out, and Sweet Home something, I forget the name of the song, but it's a forward roll, right? Those are really cool, especially when we're using the minor pentatonic scale. Let's take a look at that for a few minutes. A couple of seconds, maybe not a couple minutes, but I'm using, basically that old blues sort of shuffle sort of pattern. Get you back, get you back, get you back. I hear that, a lot of those really great blues players play the way they would say or sing it. So just think of a really simple idea in order to play this around with the E chord. Something about early morning is, I don't have my coffee yet. Did you hear it? And you can just kind of mess with the tempo too, muck it about. But anyway, we want to get back into this nice world of E major for a moment. And the same thing we did if you watched along with the D chord, rabbit hole. We're stuck right in the midst of a pretty good rabbit hole here. So we've got the E, and this is where we really start to explore the E chord before we turn it into a bar chord. We can just play down strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, and 1. And what we're doing, we're using the E note. Every note is moving up parallel from where it begins. Some places it sounds cool if you're only there for a brief period of time, but other places are a little bit they're pretty powerful because you get that E drone in the bass. And it's all E blues, we're playing American guitar here. And we could play a little bit more like early American with that really cool descending melodic pattern that incorporates it coming directly out of the major scale. But we introduce some chromaticism here when we descend one fret at a time to another or diatonic area, which is the second degree, and then back to the 1. So we have G sharp, which is like G, or an inversion of E, because E also exists here, the same way it exists here. Same notes. We have E, B, E, G sharp, B, E, right? And then we have E, B if we're doubling or double stopping the E, the A, and the D strings. We have that bulky pattern here. But we also have a nice lighter high end where we duplicate or double the fret 4 on the G string, which is a B note, with the open B string, and then we grab that 4th fret on the high E string. We can truncate this. It's that same, we don't need to bar that 2nd fret. We could just choke that out with the tip of the 1st finger. Don't forget to be observant to your metronome running in the background. That's an important feature of what we're up to today, is to remember our breath. And we're working through inversions like we did before, but we'll get there in just a moment. But for now, we're just going to stick with that little part of the rabbit hole where we're just picking up that classic, blues or really ragtime lick that we can play on the guitar, or we could actually, let's see. Yeah, so it's finger style. All right, but now we're also thinking about that as a blues turnaround. like that. Here, we'll get there. How do we fit that in there? I mean, how do we know where to put it? One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3. So we have to figure out how many beats that descending pattern is, right? 2, 3, 1. So 2, 3, 4, 4, 7, 1. So 2 bars almost. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And this would typically come at the end of the 12-bar blues pattern, which is beyond the scope of our session today. But I just wanted to get that under the fingertips. So we have a review of the E major chord that we're planing across the guitar. This is a nice one. G's a nice one. G sharp's not, it's a little weird. I might not spend a whole lot of time there unless I'm in passing. That kind of stuff. But the A sounds great, even with a B underneath it. And then the A sharp is a little bit wild. But it's really, something is really interesting. Something that's happening here is very interesting. And then the B chord with the E underneath, it gives us that sort of suspended feel, like in a Rush song, like Spirit of Radio, for example. Some happy stuff going on there. And then this flat 7 is the C chord has all of those notes in it anyway, And this is a little weird. This is kind of cool, the D and then, or the E sharp approaching the E again, an octave from whence we came, an octave above from whence we came. So we have that same thing happening here. Right? Or we could do this. And this is a really great Dave Matthews skill to have under the guitar fingertips, especially if this is applied to your acoustic guitar. Not the right key, but you get the idea that these are those shapes. So we have this nice E chord with the G sharp in the bass, and then we're skipping the A string, and we're playing the E and the B on the top the two middle strings. Then we're doing, that's the third inversion, or first inversion with the third in the bass. Now we have the fifth in the bass, which is basically a second inversion. So we have all of the notes from the E major triad, but we're only playing 3 of them, and it really gives the guitar a beautiful resonance, wonderful resonance that you can't get any other way. You just have a big fat root note down on this string, and then skip this A string, and then you have these 2 middle strings working, and then swing back to the root position, which we can't do in open position because we've got to have a note that E. We've got to have that B note, back here. So, but that's the. Got to make sure we get all of those positions right. And we can do that, of course, over the span of each string, right? So we have E first, root note, and then we have the third inversion, and then what's this one? Boy, let's see. We have root 5-3, 3 root 5, and then 5, 5. Is that what that is? Wow. But I guess this is a slightly different shape. So instead of skipping the next closest string, I think we're going to incorporate that and then open up a gap between the lower part of the chord and the upper part of the chord. So that's another thing to think about, probably just slightly beyond the scope of this lesson. But we have all kinds of places to play the E chord, I guess, is what we've discovered here. Another really great one is this 7th fret, this power chord, basically. You know, we've got 7, 9, 9, everything else is open. So there's a lot connecting the E chord with other chords across, and other variations of the chord itself across the guitar neck. So I would learn, firstly, I would just, as a beginner, if I'm really just freshly approaching the guitar, which is the way I like to feel every time I play the guitar, and I'm sure you appreciate that sentiment as well. I'm just going to go through and practice the E chord again, and then just practice the scale. Just make sure that I'm practicing the scale as much in the descending pattern as I am in the ascending pattern. What I don't want to do, what I want to try to avoid, is feeling like I can play the scale in ascending better than I can descending. So I want to have a nice balanced left hand. So if I need to repeat the E major scale descending pattern, I just try to balance out my playing so I can descend as easily as I can ascend. And then, of course, we could use patterns, but that's, for another day. I just think the E chord is really cool because we can use this E chord to kind of just take us all over the guitar neck. So in review, we played the E major chord today, the E7, but we also incorporated the variations of the E major scale, through my blunders, and then the E minor pentatonic scale. And we also talked about what happens when we use the E chord just in that sort of shuffle pattern that we all know and love so well. And what we can do with that when we composite, synthesize a rhythmic pattern that we, salt and pepper with a little, minor pentatonic or major pentatonic in between, where the magic happens was the difference between the blurring of the lines between the minor third and the major third. Very important thing to talk about, especially in the open position E chord in a standard tuning guitar. That's how we're all built. And I hope you got something useful out of our time together today. And if you have questions, I definitely have been really appreciating the feedback. I mean, the feedback is just awesome. It takes a little bit of risk to stretch out, and it's a little bit of expense, but we're recouping the loss by learning and engaging with something that's enriching our minds, and hopefully our bodies through posture and breathing and breath and that stuff. But if you have specific requests, we're going to continue down these chord rabbit holes, and some of them are going to get pretty deep, but that's okay. That's fun. And if you have requests, go ahead and let us know, and keep letting us know. And we definitely thrive on the positive feedback. So liking and sharing and subscribing those are all things that we've all been trained to do. And if you want to do that, go ahead. And if you feel more comfortable just doing the private sessions and keeping it to yourself, I get it. So I really appreciate you doing this. And until next time, happy picking.